I never planned on buying my parents' apartment building. But then again, I never planned on them turning my 30th birthday dinner into another opportunity to belittle my life choices. The evening started like any other family gathering at Le Chateau, the upscale French restaurant my parents chose, not because I wanted it, but because it was where they could show off to their country club friends. I arrived early, smoothing down my simple black dress, the same one they'd criticized last Christmas for being off the rack. My father's voice boomed across the private dining room before I even saw him. "Catherine, there's our birthday girl still dressing like a small-town secretary." He air-kissed my cheek, his expensive cologne overwhelming. My mother followed, her diamonds catching the light as she gave me a practiced smile. "Darling, we were just telling the Hamiltons about your, what do you call it? That little office job of yours." I took a slow sip of water, thinking about the stack of acquisition papers sitting on my desk at home. "It's property management, Mom. Just like I told you last month." Right, she waved her hand dismissively. "Such a shame you left Harrison and Brooks. You could have been partner by now like your brother Michael." "Ah yes, Michael. The golden child who could do no wrong." Even now, at 35, he was still living off our parents' connections, his partner position more about who he knew than what he could do. "I'm doing fine, Mom." I tried to keep my voice neutral even as I felt the familiar twist in my stomach. The same feeling I'd had when I quit my soul-crushing corporate job 3 years ago to start my own company. "Fine." My father scoffed, raising his champagne glass. "Catherine, you work in a tiny office in that old building on 5th Street. The same building where we had to help you rent your first apartment because no one else would take you without a co-signer. If only they knew. That old building was just the beginning. Over the past 3 years, I'd quietly built Empire Property Holdings into one of the city's fastest-growing real estate investment firms. While they thought I was barely making rent, I was acquiring properties across 3 states. Speaking of that building," my mother continued, her voice dripping with false concern, "aren't you embarrassed to still be living there? All your cousins own homes in the Heights by now." I felt my phone buzz in my purse. Probably Jessica, my assistant, with updates about our latest acquisition. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my parents sipped champagne and lamented my life choices, I was about to close a deal that would change everything. "Actually," I started but was cut off by my father's booming voice. "Everyone a toast." He raised his glass, drawing attention from the other guests, mostly their friends, not mine. "To Catherine still working that tiny job. Maybe this year she'll finally come to her senses and let me get her a real position at the firm." The crystal glasses clinked, the sound mixing with polite laughter. I saw the Hamiltons exchange knowing looks, their faces a mix of pity and amusement. This was exactly why I'd kept my success quiet. In their world, success only counted if it came through their approved channels. Just then the dining room door opened. Jessica walked in, her professional demeanor a stark contrast to the party atmosphere. She carried a leather portfolio. The one I knew contained the final paperwork for today's acquisition. "Ms. Walker," she said, using my professional name. "I apologize for interrupting, but there's something that requires your immediate attention." My mother frowned. "Catherine, dear, can't your little work crisis wait? We're about to cut the cake." Jessica's eyes met mine, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Actually, Mrs. Walker, this concerns you and Mr. Walker as well. It's about your building." "Our building?" My father's brow furrowed. "What could you possibly have to do with our building?" I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress. 3 years of being underestimated, of smiling through their condescension had led to this moment. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. You see, Empire Property Holdings just acquired the entire Hamilton Heights complex." My mother's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. "Empire, what?" "Empire Property Holdings," Jessica repeated clearly, opening her portfolio. "Your building's new owner. Or should I say," she looked at me, "Ms. Walker is your new owner." The champagne glass slipped from my mother's grip, shattering against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent room, crystalline shards scattering like the pieces of their perfect world. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. "This is absurd. That complex is worth millions. You can't possibly." 12 million to be exact, I cut in smoothly. "Though we got it for 10.5. The previous owner was quite motivated to sell." The room had gone completely still. Even the waiters had stopped in their tracks, sensing the dramatic shift in atmosphere. The Hamiltons were suddenly very interested in their dessert plates. "Jessica," I said calmly, "would you mind showing my parents the paperwork? I believe they'll find everything in order." As Jessica stepped forward with the documents, I caught my reflection in one of the restaurant's mirrors. I looked different somehow. Stronger. No longer the disappointing daughter they'd spent years trying to reshape into their image of success. My mother's voice came out as a whisper. "But, how?" I smiled, thinking of all the nights I'd worked late, the risks I'd taken, the deals I'd crafted while they thought I was just playing at business. It turns out that tiny job of mine isn't so tiny after all. The night was far from over, but in that moment, watching my parents' perfectly maintained facade crumble, I realized something important. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a property deed and a foreclosure notice. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. My father was the first to recover, his face shifting from shock to something darker, more calculated. I recognized that look. It was the same one he wore when closing hostile takeovers at his firm. "Catherine," he said, his voice eerily calm, "let's discuss this privately." He gestured toward the restaurant's terrace. "Actually," I smiled, taking my seat again, "anything you have to say can be said right here. After all, isn't this what birthdays are for? Family revelations." Jessica remained standing beside me, a quiet pillar of support. She'd been with me since the beginning, back when Empire Property Holdings was nothing more than a dream and a small office above a Chinese restaurant. She knew every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every deal that had led to this moment. "This is ridiculous," my mother hissed, her perfectly manicured hands trembling as she reached for another champagne glass. "You expect us to believe you own Hamilton Heights? The most prestigious apartment complex in the city." "Not just Hamilton Heights," Jessica interjected, pulling out another document. "Ms. Walker's portfolio includes 15 properties across 3 states, including the Marina Towers in Boston and the Riverside Complex in Chicago." The Hamiltons, who had been pretending not to listen, suddenly choked on their dessert. Mrs. Hamilton's eyes widened. They owned a unit in Marina Towers. My father's mask of calm cracked slightly. "Impossible. We would have heard something." "The board members." "You mean the Thompson Group?" I asked innocently. "They're quite good at keeping things quiet when asked. Especially when the buyer prefers to operate through shell companies." A memory flashed through my mind, my father's voice 3 years ago. "Property management? That's not a real career, Catherine. You're just playing at business." "The rent increases," my mother whispered, realization dawning. "The new security systems, the lobby renovation. That was all you?" I nodded. "The building needed updating. Though I have to say your complaints to the management office about every little change were quite detailed. Jessica has quite a file." Jessica suppressed a smile, remembering the countless angry emails from my mother about the new lobby furniture being too modern, and the security cameras being invasive. "Why?" my father demanded, his voice rising. "Why go behind our backs like this?" "Behind your backs?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I tried telling you about my company dozens of times. Every family dinner, every holiday. But you were too busy praising Michael's latest handed-to-him promotion or criticizing my little job to listen." The mention of Michael made my mother flinch. My perfect older brother was notably absent tonight, probably still dealing with the fallout from his latest failed investment, though my parents would never acknowledge that. "Speaking of Michael," Jessica said, pulling out yet another document, "he's been quite persistent about renting one of the penthouse units. His application crossed my desk this morning." My mother's face paled. Michael had told them he was buying the penthouse, not renting. Another lie they'd chosen to believe. "That's enough." My father stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Whatever game you're playing, Catherine, it stops now. I'll have my lawyers look into this tomorrow." "Your lawyers?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Harrison and Brooks? They might be a bit busy. You see, they're currently reviewing their own lease agreement with Empire Properties. We acquired their building last month." The room spun with shocked whispers. Harrison and Brooks was one of the city's oldest law firms, and my father's personal counsel for 30 years. "Mrs. Walker," Jessica spoke up, her voice professionally detached, While we're discussing business matters, I should inform you about the upcoming changes to Hamilton Heights. The board has approved several renovations which will unfortunately require a temporary rent increase. My mother's face went from pale to crimson. You wouldn't dare. Actually, I took another sip of water. The notices went out this morning. A 40% increase effective next month. Of course, if that's too burdensome, we can discuss alternative arrangements. Alternative arrangements? My father's voice was dangerous now. Yes. The garage level has several recently renovated units. They're smaller, but the rent is much more reasonable. Perfect for tenants on a fixed income. The same garage level units my mother had complained about last Christmas, saying they were barely fit for the help. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. This is how you repay us. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I stood slowly, placing my napkin on the table. You mean like telling me I'd never succeed on my own? Or turning every family gathering into a chance to remind me what a disappointment I am? Or perhaps you mean co-signing my first apartment lease, which, by the way, you never let me forget. The other guests were openly staring now, their desserts forgotten. The birthday cake sat untouched, its candles unlit. I built this company from nothing, I continued, my voice steady. No family connections. No trust fund. Just 18-hour days and a belief that I could succeed without your approval. Jessica handed me my coat, a simple black piece that probably cost more than my mother's entire outfit, not that they'd ever noticed. The foreclosure notices go out next week, I said, gathering my things. Don't worry, I've arranged for all affected tenants to have priority access to our other properties. Though you might want to start packing soon. The garage units fill up quickly. You can't do this, my mother whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. And I did. I turned to the stunned party guests. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the cake. I hear the vanilla buttercream is excellent. As I walked toward the door, Jessica close behind, I heard my father call out one last time. Catherine, you'll regret this. Family is all you have. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the scene, the scattered champagne glass shards, the shocked faces, the crumbled facade of family perfection. No, Dad. Family is all you had. I have an empire. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In the elevator, Jessica finally let her professional mask slip, breaking into a grin. Happy birthday, Ms. Walker. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Thank you, Jessica. Though I have to say your timing was impeccable. I learned from the best, she replied, checking her phone. By the way, the Marina Towers deal just closed. You now own Mrs. Hamilton's building too. I laughed as we stepped into the cool night air. My phone was already buzzing with messages. Probably relatives who'd heard about the dinner's dramatic ending. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to answer them. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes with the satisfaction of watching a champagne glass shatter against the floor of an overpriced French restaurant.